Short film that's going to tell you a little bit more about the did not attend tracker that has been created. Effectively, this is just an Excel spreadsheet that uses run charts and allows you to monitor and map your DNA rate on a week by week basis. Just by way of background, in terms of getting hold of a copy, if you go to the Practice Index website and head for their resources section, that's where you'll be able to download this Excel tool. There's also an accompanying 4-page PDF document that will tell you a little bit more about run charts and how to analyse and interpret the data that you will generate via the Excel tool. So those of you looking at the screen will have a pretty good appreciation, I'm sure, of how Excel works, and effectively what I'm going to show you is just really how to move around the DNA tracker and to get the most out of it. First thing just to really have a look at is the tabs along the bottom, and these are the ones that you're going to be moving between in order to utilise the resource. So on screen at the moment you've just got a very simple introduction page that tells you a little bit more about myself and those involved in setting this resource up. What you'll be most interested in is the tracker section, and this is effectively where you're going to enter your weekly DNA rates and the resource will interpret the information for you. Effectively all you need to focus on at this point are columns B and C. We would advise you initially to actually type in your practice list size. So for convenience we're going to assume there's a practice with 10,000 patients. All you need to do, as I say, is monitor your weekly DNA rates. I'm sure you collect most of these anyway. So in the B column you're going to be vertically recording the week by week date, and then in the C column under the red heading you're going to be recording your weekly DNA. So the best way to show you how this works is by just entering some information, and as you'll see when I start to enter information into the columns B and C, the graph, which is currently blank, will actually start to populate itself. So let's just have a quick go so you get an appreciation of how to use this. So let's start and assume that we've collected some data for the first week in 2016. So we'll say there were 70 DNAs in week 1. We'll enter some information for the second week. It's gone up slightly to 89. Third week we've had another rise, it's gone up to 100. The next week, week 4, we're going to see a drop and it's gone down to 75. And then we'll just add one more week's data. So the 5th of February, we'll say there was, let's say, a bit of a significant rise to 120. What you can see very clearly is that two things have happened. First of all, the DNA column, so column E, has been populated. So all that's happening here is we're getting a calculation of what the actual percentage of patients DNAing is. So you can see here the lowest number is 0.7% and it's gone up to 1.2% in the 5th week. Just by way of a guide, Practice Index did some work whereby they asked practices to report their weekly DNA rates, and so you've got a gauge of how your results will compare. From 70 practices, the average weekly DNA rate was 1.88%. So if you're getting a result of less than 2% in this column, then on average you're doing better than those who report it back to the Practice Index survey. What you'll be most interested in though is the graph here, and effectively, as I said, the information in columns B and C has been translated onto a graph. So this is something you can use to show staff and patients and others how your DNA rate is progressing over time. It's very simple to understand how this works. So a run chart, first of all, it calculates the median, which is this red line across here, and that's the middle value in all your data. So you can see here that the median is 89, and that's also been calculated in column D. And then this blue line effectively shows you the change on a week by week basis. So we start here in week 1 with 70, it jumps up to 89, up to 100, and it comes back down to 75 and then rockets back up to 120. But if you enter more information over the weeks, this information will be shown on your chart and it will extend over to the right hand side. As I said, there's some background information that tells you the significance of your results, and that's contained in the PDF. But this will help you to understand whether when you put changes into place it's resulting in a reduction in your DNA rate, or even if you're just monitoring your DNA rate over time, what's actually happening to it. I should have said also that if you have any problems, there are some instructions up here that tell you a little bit more again about how to enter the information, and as I said, you'll find this section here quite useful because that tells you a little bit more in terms of how to interpret the information conveyed on the graph. So to give you an idea of actually what this data looks like when you've entered a little bit more, if we click on example 1 tab at the bottom here, you'll see I've created some fictitious information for a practice with 14,000 patients, and we've entered a year's worth of data, and you can see here what the results have been, and this is what you will start to build up if you enter the data on a week by week basis. For this particular practice, you will see it's quite erratic, their DNA rate, so it's bouncing up and down, be above the median and then down below. And then what happened here is we see that there's a significant reduction where we see a fall below the median. That means that there's obviously an improvement, and in terms of just a very quick explanation of how to interpret this information, if your results sit above the median, then obviously your DNA rate is higher than average. What we're hoping for is to start to see, when you put changes into place, results that fall below the median line, because that is effectively showing you that there is an improvement in your DNA rate over time. As I said, to understand how run charts work, you're looking for various what we call signals, and again, I haven't got time to explain how this works now, but you will be given an opportunity if you download the resource to look at example 1, and it will ask you certain questions of the data we've added in. If you then click on example 2, that will tell you what the actual results are. So you'll be able to play with this and get an appreciation of understanding how run charts work and how you can actually understand the information that they are conveying to you. Also, we've created a tab here. We've done some research looking at what's available in terms of telling us how to try and reduce our DNA rate. So there's 10 tips here that hopefully will be useful, and there might be things that you may have already tried but you could consider trying to help reduce your DNA rate. There's also a few words of wisdom based on our personal experience of helping practices to take part in this type of work. And then the final thing to show you is the further information section does exactly what it really says on the tin. There's again some links to some useful websites that have looked at DNAs, and there's also 3 links to useful information about run charts, which again will tell you a little bit more about how these tools are being used within a healthcare setting to try and in a quality improvement capacity to try and improve care for patients. So that pretty much tells you everything about the resource, and I hope you find this short film useful.